There's 3 of these little testimonials. This is from my good friend Pete. He was a police officer in Frankfurt. When our son was 5 years old, he started suffering from headaches, vomiting, diarrhea, and brain fog. The kid's 5. This is not a good situation. Numerous attempts at our family pediatrician. After numerous attempts at our family pediatrician, we were asked to see Dr. Z. We had him evaluate him. He immediately used nutrition response testing, adjustments, and supplementation. Immediately, his symptoms were gone. After some dietary changes, our son is a different person. Prior to working with Dr. Z, our pediatrician tried to treat him for depression. Okay? This is our traditional approach right now, right? Medication. If you can't fix it, medicate it. Again, using supplementations and adjustments and different techniques, Dr. Z fixed the excruciating bicep pain I had in my arm as well. The next one. Dr. Z is a wealth of knowledge. When you exhaust every other medical option, what he does deals directly with the body. There's no guesswork. If you're feeling completely hopeless and need answers and resolution, make your appointment soon. Okay. Words don't exist to thank Dr. Z and Michael for how much they do, and since they've helped my mother so much. Since my mom doesn't use the internet, I'm leaving a review on her behalf. My mother started seeing them back in November of 22 for her fibromyalgia. Regular doctors prescribed her medicine and said there wasn't anything else they could do. Well, the medicine wasn't working for her, and it was to the point she was staying in bed most days, most of the time. After seeing Dr. Z, she has been so much better. She's lost 60 plus pounds, and she's able to live her life again. She hasn't had any fibromyalgia flare-ups, and she's a lot healthier and feels like she's got her life back. So, not all heroes wear capes, right? I don't actually fly. We don't have a bat signal. But that's humbling. The embarrassing part of that is we don't really know any more than you guys do. Like, we're not smarter than your average doctors, or we're not smarter than you guys. We put our pants on the same way. So as flattering as that stuff is, it's kind of embarrassing because we have a secret, right? We have a
little inside track there.
Yeah. It's kind of like insider trading with Congress. It's legal. It's kind of what we do. What's our secret?
We get to ask your body what's wrong, and it tells us, so it gives us the answers right away.
Yeah. So we cheat. There's a problem with your body, we ask your body what the problem is. And then we also ask your body how you fix that problem. And we get results like that, which make us look really good. It's really not that difficult. So question number 1, how do we explain this to someone?
Well, in order to explain anything to someone, you really need to understand what you're explaining. So first thing is we need to understand what muscle testing is. So what is muscle testing? Muscle testing, simply put, is a tool we use to assess the body. But if you want to expound upon that,
it's a non-invasive way of using your body's reflexes to assess your body. So instead of using some kind of outside parameter, we can use Lee or Noah or Adia, use your body and figure out what's wrong with your body. And we're going to get into that in more detail. So what is a reflex? So we'll need the mic under the TV as well. Let's see if these are still pulled up. Check this out.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and...
Reflex reactions are immediate, unconscious responses to a stimulus that provides us with protection and facilitates our survival. From our videos on the nervous system and nerve cells, you should already know about the stimulus, receptor, sensory neuron, central nervous system, motor neuron.
This is the spinal cord.
And how sensory neurons, motor neurons, and relay neurons differ from one another. In this video, we are going to look at what happens in reflex reactions. Touch a boiling plate, face to face with a lion, eye reacting to bright light, you want a fast reaction. When your safety demands a quick response, the signals may bypass the brain and be acted upon as soon as they reach the spinal cord. These shorter pathways are called reflex arcs. Reflex arcs are built-in or innate behaviors, and we all behave in the same way. Even though the brain is bypassed for the immediate response, the nerve message is still passed on to the brain so that you can think about whether any further action is needed. So the pathway has been cut down by speeding up the central nervous system aspect. The message reaches the spinal cord and heads straight back out down the motor neuron to produce a response. See what happens when you touch a hard object. There are 2 types of reflex.
So we don't really need to know what both types of reflexes are. However, When we say reflex, that's what we're referring to. It's a neurological response in your body. Sometimes that bypasses the brain, sometimes it doesn't. But as we get deeper into this, this is very much a scientific thing, and there's a lot less mystery involved in it. We're good on the reflex part so far. Yeah. And it's automatic. You don't really process that, right? If you touch something hot, you immediately withdraw that. So how do we apply that to your body in a practical way? Like, how can you process that and relate to that? Go ahead, Michael.
Well, the easiest way to understand muscle testing is to reference a circuit breaker and dimmer switch. So, like the circuit we talked about before, if your circuit breaker is switched off, your circuit's going to be open and the light's going to be off, your dimmer switch. If the breaker is up, circuit's closed, the light's going to be on, you're going to be strong here.
Has everybody used a circuit breaker before? I would say so, right? We definitely have all used a light switch. They're pretty much the same thing. So a muscle test uses the current, the electricity generated by your nervous system to assess that circuit. So we're testing it for strength. More on that in a minute. The circuit is what creates the weak or strong response in the body. So we're using the muscle to actually assess the stress in the nervous system. Okay? So think about all the outlets we have here. If we plugged in a couple of lights and things like that, we'd have no issue, right? But what if we plugged in a bunch of hair dryers at one time? You could pretty much bet you'd blow that circuit, right? You'd have to reset it because you put too much stress on the circuit. And the safety switch is, boom, it shuts off. It's the same exact thing that happens in the body when you muscle test. And we'll get more on that here. So do you want to explain the diagrams then?
Pretty simple here. Your circuit's open, your light bulb's going to be off. Your circuit's closed, the light bulb is on. So.
Yep, and for our purposes, this is going to be the spinal cord or brain. The light bulb is your arm, or whatever muscle we're using. It doesn't have to be your arm. And more or less, you're going to have a lack of function here. But this could be a dimmer switch too. You know what I mean? This could just be a very dim light bulb. We're assessing the amount of stress and current flowing through those nerves by using the muscle controlled by those nerves. This is really good. I think this will explain a lot.
What? Oh, is that your crop?
We specifically set these up. Yeah. Check this out. That's a voltmeter. You can measure the electricity in someone's body that way. He's taking apart a little digital watch. He's going to take the battery out of that watch. He's creating a circuit right now, adding those wires. So right now, he's trying to power that circuit just with his hands. There's not enough electricity to do that. AA battery works just fine. One and a half volts, 3/4 of a volt. 3/4 times 2 is 1.5. So what's he going to do? He's going to double that voltage by getting another person's body in the circuit. Now you've just doubled that voltage, powered the watch. Your body is very much an electrical object. Pretty cool, right? Sometimes showing people is a lot better than just trying to explain something like that. So when we talk about oh, no you don't. There we go.
Autoplay gets you every time.
Yes, it does. There we go. All right. So now that we understand the electrical potential in the human body, what does it mean when we're locked or switched on? First off, for those of you that have been muscle tested, do you know this part? Is being locked or switched on a good thing?
locked is bad, switched on is good.
They're synonyms. Locked and switched on are synonyms. So switched off would be bad. Switched on would be good. What does that mean? Right? We still don't know. Go ahead.
It just means your circuit's closed and everything's working like it's supposed to. Electricity's run all the way through. There's no interruption in it. So you're strong.
So the light bulb, that dimmer switch, when you're switched on or that muscle is locked, the dimmer switch is turned all the way up. The light bulb is as bright as it's going to get. When you're switched off or unlocked, there's stress in the system. It's turning that dimmer switch down. When I iron at home and like the furnace kicks on or I'm running an air filter, anything else that's running, when my iron kicks on to heat up, it does what to the lights? It dims them temporarily. It's putting too much draw on that circuit. Not enough to blow it, but enough to create stress to dim the light bulbs. Okay? It's the same principle in your body. You're either adding too much stress to the system or you're not. If your body can withstand that, that's normal, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So how does that apply to you?
Like we said, your body is properly adapting to the stress on your arm, stress being applied, and when you're switched on, that is a normal function.
Yes.
If you're switched off, vice versa, it would not be normal.
Right. So we're stress testing your nervous system. You should be able to handle that. And for those of you that have not been muscle tested, it's not a lot of pressure that's required. So you should be switched on or have that neurological lock very easily. We muscle tested Noah since he was a little guy. He was able to do it. So adults should definitely be able to do it. Michael, where did muscle testing originate? Like, who figured all this stuff out? People ask all the time.
Dr. George Goodhart did it. He was a doctor in Michigan.
Yep, in the 60s.
Yep.
People ask us, like, we figured this stuff out. We didn't figure this out. We stand on the shoulders of others for sure.
It's been around for quite a while.
Yep. The next most common question, the vials. Yes, right? So what are these vials?
They are homeopathic vials, so they contain several different homeopathic dilutions relating to a specific category that's in the vial.
So
that's what they look like.
For those of you that haven't seen these, this is what they look like. And each vial represents a category. So you may have a food vial or several food vials, chemicals, various things like that, neurotransmitters. So you can look at multiple aspects at one time in the body. Now, we just told you it's a homeopathic dilution. Who in here knows what a homeopathic dilution is? Okay, good. We're going to tell you. A homeopathic solution or dilution is?
It's just extremely diluted water that at one point contained the physical substance that was in the mixture. But now it's been, there you go. So what is homeopathy? Homeopathy is, you take a substance in water, and you're going to keep diluting it over and over until eventually there's actually no substance left in the water. It's just going to be the frequency of the substance that was originally in the water in the vial or whatever container you have it in.
Yep. There's a French researcher who discovered HIV. He won the Nobel Prize for discovering HIV virus. He also randomly rediscovered homeopathy, but in France. So they realized, for whatever reason, if there's a bacteria in the water and you dilute that water, they were still able to pick up the frequency, the energy of that bacteria in the water, even though there was no physical bacteria in the water. We're going to give you a pretty cool video on this as well. So homeopathic dilutions are in the vials. That's how we can test multiple foods at one time. There's no actual food in that vial. It's water imprinted with a computer of the vibration of that food. We're going to show you how they do that in a video. What is homeopathy? Homeopathy, it's a very gentle and effective form of alternative medicine. It's regulated by the FDA. It's recognized as medicine. And the way it works, like he said, is it's a very, very, very diluted product. It's essentially water that has energy. Water has memory. We're going to talk about that right now. Let's see if we can get this to start.
If you have at least 50.
And we set all these up too to not have ads.
And then they still got us.
Oh no, what did I do?
There you
Came back and said, do you mind if I try to dilute some of our reagents and see if they do something on cells? And I remember vividly, that was 1982 or 83, that I told him, okay, look, do it, but this is water. It's going to do nothing.
But puzzlingly, the researchers' initial tests showed an effect. So Benveniste put one of his best technicians onto it, Elizabeth Davenant. She was skilled in a technique developed by Benveniste himself, using an allergen, like this anti-serum, to test people's blood for allergies. So Benveniste asked her to dilute the anti-serum in exactly the way homeopaths make their remedies, by successive dilutions in water, interspersed by vigorous shaking. The shaking, say homeopaths, energizes the water. But as at each stage the solution is diluted by a factor of 10, after the second dilution it's 100 times weaker, and 1 billion by the 9th.
1 billion.
In fact, above the 20th, there's literally nothing left of the original starting substance. Benveniste then asked for the highest dilutions to be added to the blood samples. If someone's allergic, particular blood cells called basophils will explode or degranulate on contact with an allergen, releasing histamine. But now that the allergen had been so highly diluted, Benveniste was sure his top assistant would see nothing. But astonishingly, she recorded almost as many cells degranulated by the homeopathic dilutions as by the original full-strength allergen.
The very first thought was that there was an error. But when I got the second set of data, I had the feeling of setting the foot in a completely unknown world, something that was so strange that I couldn't even envision what was going on.
Pretty neat, huh? So there's nothing even left in there, and it still had the same body response. It's just water, right? So in theory, couldn't you extrapolate that out like the future of medicine? If we know statins are correlated with breast cancer, diabetes, dementia, couldn't you maybe make a homeopathic solution out of that and give it to somebody and not have those side effects? A lot of people on statins have heart attacks, right? It's one of the main side effects, ironically. But you can't patent a homeopathic process. Maybe that's why. I don't know. It's just interesting to think about. So that's what the vials are. They're the same principle. It's vibration in a jar. And let's see here. So go ahead.
Like we said before, it's there's nothing left in the vial. The vial just has water, but the water has the frequency of the substance that was originally there, and the frequency is the key.
What is frequency? Can anybody actually define frequency? Every slide I made, I was like, there's a new question associated with each one. There's probably going to be 4 of these kinds of presentations because there's so much to like jam in here. When we get to emotion, we're going to cover like the surface of it. And there's a whole other presentation we can do on emotion. Frequency is vibration. So in physics class, back in high school, right? What is frequency? It's sine waves or cosine waves. It's the vibration, the amplitude. What we want to do is, let's see, is that a link, Michael? No. Okay. How do we use these frequencies to assess the body?
Well, the frequency is radiating from the vial, and that's what we use to assess the body. We don't need the vial itself, we just need the frequency.
So getting tan or sunburn or feeling heat through a window, like a glass window, radiation and energetics like that pass through glass. It's the same way the vials work. They're putting off a frequency. In fact, sometimes if the body is extremely sensitive to them, you can be several feet from the body and still get a body's response for that. We see that pretty often.
Yep.
This is really good too. Why frequency matters. Let's see here. No ads on this one. This is super fascinating. This guy, he's going to put salt down on this table. When you watch this, think about good vibes. When people have good vibes, the vibration they put off. This is going to tie into that. Water does the same exact thing as salt does here. when it crystallizes. Isn't it? It's a very pretty geometric shape. Look at that. It's like a diamond inside of a star, or star inside of a star. But when he applies a different frequency to it, guess what happens? You guys are smart. That's an interesting shape, right? That was kind of similar to the first one, except there's nothing in the middle. How cool is that? So he starts over, and then I think the next one is actually a perfect circle. There you go. That is physics happening before your eyes. You're making a perfect 360-degree sphere using vibration. Okay, whew, we get the idea.
I can't see it real well. What is he using in his hand?
Some type of rubber mallet. There's a rubber thing on the end of that. And they're different sizes, and they produce different vibrations. Mm-hmm. Yep. The friction is creating that vibration. Everything in our lives is vibration. Your thoughts, your health, the chair you're sitting on is vibrating at a molecular level. Atoms never stop moving. What's everything made from? Atoms, right? Okay. Some of you have seen this before. Some of you have not. Has anybody had experience with a tuning fork before? Old school, right? So probably not. What happens when you have two tuning forks of the same frequency? If I activate one, guess what happens to the other? Just guess. It sure does. So I'm going to shut this one off and then see if Noah can hear that. Yeah, it's ringing.
Probably about done at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And for the microphone, do one for the microphone. Ready? For time's sake, we're not going to hold these here for 30 seconds, but the longer it's there, the more the other one will vibrate. So Michael's going to hold that, face the camera. Maybe you can pick that up.
Hopefully you can hear that. It's pretty quiet, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right, so our next demo here, I think, nope. So we're going to go right here to seeing frequency. Oh, yeah. Check this out, too. This is good. We've got two tuning forks, different frequencies. Now he's going to use two tuning forks, the same frequency. See how that energy is a physical energy? You can't see it, taste it, smell it, but you can actually see it move that ping pong ball. So why are we showing you this? Let's see if I can pause that now. Why are we showing you this? The reason being, I hold a tuning fork, he holds a tuning fork. Substitute that for one of the vials we use. If we're using a vial, this is a tuning fork. It's putting off a frequency. His body is putting off multiple frequencies. The vibration in here may or may not match the vibration in his body. If it does match the vibration in his body, we'll use the other arm, he may start off strong. If there's a match here, his body's going to resonate with it. It's ringing, his body's going to ring, except his body doesn't make noise. What happens is the muscle response changes. It's vibrating at, say, 150 hertz. His body vibrates at 150 hertz. We get a response. It goes weak. If there is no response, we're not concerned about this vial then. There's nothing in this vial that matters at this moment, good or bad. Okay, so it's just the same deal. He's a tuning fork, the vial is a tuning fork. The difference is it's not a frequency you hear. In our case, it's a frequency we can see. Making sense? Good. This is pretty cool too. So some frequencies you can see, and you'll see that in this one. This is a big tuning fork, right? You see those sine waves? That's the frequency of that particular pitch. Frequency is a vibration. Rarely can you see it, but there are times you can see it. That's the same thing happening to these smaller guys, they're just a lot smaller. Cool, so that's the whole frequency muscle testing kind of thing. So you guys should be a couple questions down on your question and answer sheet there by now. Yep. The next question we get a lot is, hey, this stuff works great, kind of skip my blood work altogether. Well, that may or may not be a good idea. So is muscle testing better than blood work, Michael?
Well, that's the wrong way of looking at things, because we don't really want to know if muscle testing is better than blood work, because they do two different things. They're both assessment tools, but we want to use them to give us different answers, so to speak, different information.
Well put, sir. What are the pros of blood work?
There's a few. You can provide quantifiable data for clinical insight.
You can look at it.
So, blood work is going to give you. Wrong blood there. Blood work is going to give you exact numbers. So, if you're checking your vitamin levels or blood sugar, or whatever you're looking for, hormone, it can give you exact numbers to look at. So, quantifiable there. That's about toast.
I bumped the wrong one, I guess. What does quantifiable mean?
Quantifiable. There's numbers you can measure it with numbers.
Bingo. Measurable. Okay. There we go. This is a good one too. You can get a bird's eye view of your physiology. So, like what's happening globally in your body. You can get an idea if you're anemic. You can get an idea if there's a long-standing infection. You can't always get. Blood work is very beneficial. It's not the, I wouldn't say it's like the biblical scripture to live your life by, because it's fallible just like everything else. However, it is accepted for diagnostic purposes, and that sometimes is going to be necessary for things like insurance reimbursement and whatnot. Or if somebody does have an infection, it is nice to know exactly what the infection is sometimes, right? Or if you have a cancer, it's good to know what kind of cancer. So there is definitely a benefit to blood work. Cons of blood work.
So, data may not be consistent from one lab to another.
Try to look over here, if you can.
Over there?
Yeah.
All right.
If you can read from over.
Also, it can change throughout the month, week, or even day. So, if you get the exact same test on Tuesday, you go back Wednesday, get the same test, the numbers could be completely different. There's a lot of variables that go into that. Stress is a big one. So, if you're under more stress on one day, it's going to throw off the numbers that day, either higher or lower, depending on what you're measuring. So,
yep. And for females too, depending on that time of the month, like where you are in your cycle, even your blood sugar can change based on your thyroid hormones can change, and that is oddly one of the things not factored in when people do blood work. They'll tell you you need to fast for this, don't eat, right? But they don't tell you like do this when you're off of your period, or do this when you're on your period, or the midway through your period. And that really should be taken into account because your body is adapting to a stressor at that point in time too. Your hormones are all over the place. I mean, you know that. So does your husband. Generally, it does not give insight as to why the data is the way it is. So sure, you're anemic, but it doesn't tell us why. And really, isn't that what really matters? Like, you don't feel good. Okay, is it X, Y, and Z? Okay, well, it's anemia. Why? There's a lot of things that cause anemia. How about the bottom one there? We've seen that a lot, haven't we?
Yes. It requires interpretation, and it's going to be different from practitioner to practitioner. So one doctor practitioner might read this and say one thing. Another reads it, he says a different thing. It all depends on what they consider to be normal. So.
Yep. So it's like that scope that they look through everything through. You could have somebody who's more functional. Their ranges are going to be quite different than a traditional range. And even those ranges can be a little different from somebody who does like foundational type of medicine. I don't know if you've looked at the range on a TSH panel. It's very broad. It's like 0.5 to 4.5. Nobody feels good if they've got TSH at 4.5, yet it's considered normal. Right? Rarely, if your TSH is above 2, you feel good. But everybody's different at the same time. So that's something we have to keep into consideration. There we go. Normal. These results may come back normal. Normal for you is different than normal for Kyle. Right? We don't fit in the same cookie cutter box. What's really interesting is the values that are on your labs. Do you remember where they come from?
Sick people?
Yes, they come from the lab average, like in that area. So looking at people in your demographic, which kind of makes sense, right? But they're not using, like for me, I'd want to be compared to a 20-year-old Olympian athlete. That's who I want to be compared to. A healthy person in great shape. Look around this room, guys. You're all healthier than your average people. But do you want to be compared to your neighbor? No, because they're just as messed up as you are, right? And most people outside of here are even more messed up. How many people are on medication and diabetic and all this stuff? Why are you comparing my blood work to a 400-pound diabetic? It's just not, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, okay? So, again, these ranges are quite broad. This is a big one too. And this is where the foundational and functional approach comes into blood work. Most practitioners know how to prescribe and do blood work, but they don't know how to look at the biochemistry to actually make those tests useful. When you do serum calcium, which one do you need to do with serum calcium? Do you remember? Begins with a P. You know this.
With phosphorus?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to compare phosphorus to serum calcium. Otherwise, it's kind of useless. The other mineral is magnesium. There's just a different way of looking at things. So yes, blood work is very helpful, but if you don't order the right tests, blood work is not that helpful. Making sense? Cool.
Pros of muscle testing. So the nice thing about muscle testing, we're talking about how blood work, you're comparing it to averages different. Muscle testing, you customize it to what the patient needs. So what Noah comes in for is going to be much different than what somebody else comes in for. So we're going to be testing specifically what you need at that time. And we're not going to use the same cookie cutter approach for everybody because that's not what is going to get us the best results. So very customizable.
Yep. And then the big thing that we're going to be looking at with muscle testing is how your body's functioning right now. Blood work, if you think about this, blood work is a compensation to what happened in the past. If you had an infection, your blood cells then compensate by changing, right? If you're anemic, your blood work then reflects the anemia you started to experience. Sometimes these infections don't show up for months. Thyroid can come back normal. I've seen it up to a year. We were telling people there's something wrong with your thyroid. You probably need to get some labs run, look for autoimmunity. A year later, well, let's just not say a year, maybe like 8 or 9 months later, comes back normal. We've been telling them this for almost a year. Finally, they get their blood work back, and now autoimmunity shows up. You could have bit it in the butt a year ago. Now you have to repair your thyroid instead of just shutting off the autoimmune triggers. You can't treat autoimmune disease, but you can find the triggers. Does that make sense? So compensation versus real time, and both are helpful.
Yep.
If blood work was free, I'd have everybody do a ton of it and bring it in, because it is relevant, for sure. But is it worth $2,000 to tell you some stuff? That's up to you. Sometimes it is.
speaking of which, muscle testing, you don't need $2,000 worth of labs to use. It's
just to get started.
Yeah.
Just to get started. People need,
Yeah.
And then Michael's favorite.
I put this one on there. Blood work requires needles, obviously. Muscle testing doesn't. That's my personal favorite thing about muscle testing. I hate needles, so I was elated to find out Dr. Z wasn't going to poke me with any when I first came. So that's a big pro for me.
Yeah. Wimp. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. So muscle testing.
Another pro.
Yeah, I was saying this is a pro that I experienced. When traditional approaches or conventional approaches have failed, muscle testing does a really good job of figuring out what the issue is and taking care of it.
So how did you experience that?
So I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, all kinds of issues, gut issues, kidney issues. Children's Hospital sent me home, didn't really know what to do with me. So I ended up referred here to Dr. Z, and we used muscle testing to determine what was going on, the different sensitivities and stuff I had in my body. And so about after a year, I felt like a completely different person. And so I could definitely tell you when other stuff fails, muscle testing is the way to do it.
And that was 7 years ago.
That was 7 years ago. It was a long time ago.
He was younger than his younger brother is now when we met. So he's been doing this a long time.
Yep.
There are some cons to muscle testing, just like anything else. This also requires interpretation. So just like blood work needs to be looked at through a certain lens, so does muscle testing. You can get a number of different answers, but if you don't know how to put them together, it's not really going to help you. Okay? That's kind of where this comes in. It can be very complex or it can be extremely superficial. We're going to do some superficial testing with you guys at the end of this and just show you like, okay, you get a weak response, but it still may not tell you why, or why the why is why. Like if you're sensitive to dairy, why? Right? Yeah, I'm sensitive to dairy. Okay, that doesn't tell you a whole lot. We want to figure out why you're sensitive to dairy. This relies on knowledge and experience for the best outcome. So the experience the practitioner has and the knowledge base that they're coming from. So when we muscle test people, we may look very bird's eye view and say, hey, you're sensitive to dairy. That's probably where this skin issue is coming from. We also go down into the enzyme level, the mitochondrial level, the citric acid cycle, or the Krebs cycle. How are you making ATP to make those enzymes? Is that where the problem is? So we kind of go all the way down into the microscopic view and look for these things. Not everybody knows how to do that, and that's really where the difference comes in with muscle testing. The good news is even the superficial stuff is awesome. Mm-hmm. You know, there's different tests you can do at home, like a sway test. If you hold Yoo-hoo, whatever that chocolate milk drink, right, and you sway backwards, you probably shouldn't drink it. Your body's trying to get away from it, more or less.
One thing muscle testing cannot do is it cannot diagnose anything. We're not diagnosing you with immune stuff, allergies. We're not diagnosing you with any of that. So.
Yeah, you can't diagnose and treat based on muscle testing. It's just someone's interpretation. That your body is basically eliciting that response, but his interpretation may be different than mine. You can't really go home and tell somebody you've got a strep infection with this stuff. Okay? So, there's some pros and cons to both.
A lot of people I know would argue that the biggest con is that it in fact looks funny and people are not used to what you're doing. So, once you get over that, it's pretty nice sailing after that.
Out of all the cons, that one's definitely the mountain you have to get over.
Yeah.
So cons that they both share. Go ahead, Michael.
Both, like we discussed, are open to practitioner interpretation. So once again, practitioner to practitioner, you have to hope they know what they're doing. Both require understanding of biochemistry. You can't, well, that's all part of interpretation. If you don't understand your biochemistry, you're not going to know what to do. And yeah, those are the two main cons there.
Okay. So the next thing, can you diagnose or identify food allergies? Who says yes? Okay, a couple. Actually, there we go. No, again, that would be diagnostic. This is one of the areas where blood work shines. It's also fallible. It depends on what immune markers you're looking for. Some people order not that great of a kind of marker panel, and you get ideas if there's stuff that may be there or was there. You need to run a certain kind of allergy panel, but when you run the right panel, it will tell you if you have a long-term allergy to a food. Those proteins in that food stimulate an immune response. And unlike during the COVID era where antibodies didn't exist anymore, antibodies do exist. and you make antibodies to the food. That is an allergy. Okay? I couldn't help myself. He said no jokes, no woke humor. I haven't done any woke humor yet.
You're doing good so far.
Okay.
What muscle testing can do is it can pick up sensitivities to foods or whatever you're searching for there. It's not going to tell you if there's an allergy, but oftentimes finding sensitivity is just as, if not more useful. So
why is it more useful?
Because you don't have to look for the extreme case of an allergy. You might have a slight sensitivity to something, even just for the few weeks there, it's not all the time. And so you're able to pick that up and address it pretty quickly.
Yeah, before it turns into an allergy
Yep.
or another type of immune problem. If you've got a slight immune challenge, which can turn into a bigger immune challenge, which can turn into you becoming sick, wouldn't it be nice just to prevent that? Yeah, I'm going to stop eating bananas for 2 weeks. And you prevent the flu. Wouldn't that be nice?
Can we diagnose infections with muscle testing?
Who says yes? Good job.
We drilled it into you.
There we go.
No, you cannot.
No, you can't.
Do not put that on us. It does not go well.
Yeah, muscle testing is not FDA approved at all for anything, let alone diagnostic purposes. However, it can determine if there is an immune challenge. And the challenge can be there way before an infection actually sets in. A lot of times it's going to pick up something where like, hey, you might be carrying around something. This is resonating at the same frequency. Let's just address that frequency, shut it down before it becomes an immune problem. So I'd much rather address sensitivities than full-blown problems, right? What's cool is it can pick it up before you feel sick, while you feel sick, and even after. There's a lot of people that carry latent viruses and bacteria, things like that. You can handle that stuff generally. We get this one a lot too.
Yes. Can you tell if your vitamin A, B, C, D, whatnot is low with muscle testing or any other lab values? To some extent you can, sort of. You can't get the quantifiable numbers with muscle testing, but you can look for other markers or indicators with it.
So what does it tell you then? Is it, let's see, yeah, I guess it tells you if there is an issue.
If there's an issue, it tells you if there's an issue, and then you can also see insight into why the lab marker is there. So
what would that be? Like, what kind of insight would you be looking for? So let's just say vitamin X shows up as a muscle testing issue. His arm goes weak. Does that tell us if it's high or low?
No, you want it? No, but you can check. You could check further to see if it's high or low. If you went past that, you could see if it's being absorbed.
Could we check it high or low with muscle testing though?
You kind of, not
Probably
really.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quantifiable blood work.
Yeah.
The fallible part of that. Say this is pretend it's vitamin D, and we check it. And if you get a response on vitamin D, it tells us there's an issue in the body with vitamin D. It doesn't tell you if it's high or low, right?
Right.
Blood work tells you that number. However, is the active form of vitamin D in the blood? No. So, does it really tell you your vitamin D status in the body where it's active, in the brain, where it's activated in the kidneys, etc.? No. So again, it's helpful, but it doesn't always tell you the full story. So like vitamin D might look good on paper, really high, might be 80, which in some cases might be too high for you. Why do you still have vitamin D deficiency symptoms? The blood work says it's normal. We need to find out why. So yeah, it might be high in the blood. It doesn't mean it's high in the tissue. So this could affect metabolism, conversion, level, or amount in the blood. And you don't want to biopsy somebody's calf muscle to see how much vitamin D is in there, right? Or kidney. So this kind of goes back to the cookie cutter thing. Michael and Noah would have much different needs for a vitamin D level than somebody who's older. Christy may have a higher need for progesterone and estrogen than Stephanie, and certainly than her daughter, right? But yet we all fit into these ranges for the most part, these little boxes, and that's part of the problem with blood work. So we like to look at the individual. So Michael, why do we do certain things in certain orders? People come in very excited. They're like, hey, you helped so-and-so, their leg fell off, it grew back. I need you to help me with...
Whatever it is.
Whatever it is, yeah. I want to do this parasite cleanse. Well, we look at this a very specific way.
Right. We're going to do what we need to do to get you the best results. And that's different for everybody, but it's always going to be the specific order. It's going to be whatever your body is telling us we need to do first. You may want to work on food allergies or whatever. We can't do that until your body lets us. So
it's going to sort of dictate the course of action. A lot of times people come in and they want to fix their thyroid, like yesterday. Most thyroid hormone is converted in the liver. So when you start pounding away on someone's thyroid for a year and it's not responding because you didn't fix the liver to begin with, you kind of missed the boat. Sometimes you got to, do one thing before you can do another. Or sometimes if you want to cleanse or whatnot, you need to make sure those drainage pathways, like, are you pooping every day? Lymphatic system, is it clean? If you start getting backed up with a bunch of poisons, you're not going to be very happy.
It's not going to be a fun day.
Actually, a good story. Can I share a story about your rash?
Go for it.
He used to be on the couch. Weeks at a time, every year, because he would get the flu. And he had knee pain real bad when he would get the flu. Long story short, we started addressing some of those causes for him. And it hasn't happened in a couple years. How many years?
2 years.
2 years. So once you start addressing the underlying issue, that stuff seems to go away. But you shouldn't get a rash and knee pain and all this stuff when you get the flu. So as you clean out those drainage pathways and do things in order, your body can handle it a lot better.
We started working all that immune stuff, and I broke out in a full body rash for like 3 weeks.
It was great.
Knee pain went away.
It was epic.
But
yeah, it's like I take that knee pain back now.
Yeah, for a little bit. Yeah.
So, how do we know what order we want to do it in?
We just ask the body.
Yep, gives us the inside track, right? So it'll generally tell us, and then also that clinical insight comes in. We started the lady today. Thymus was her priority. She has been sick all the time. She's fatigued. And she's got severe PMS symptoms. She has PMDD. So when we checked her, we found a chemical stressing her thymus. So we started to address that a little bit. And when we dose people, that gives us an idea of what your body is requiring. She dosed the highest out of anybody I've ever seen for this particular product that we use for detoxification. It was in the hundreds. So do you think I started her on take 6 a day? No. She's doing half a capsule twice a day. Now yes, her muscle testing told us yes, she needs X amount. But you have to clinically know what's going to be a result of that. Okay? And that's where the experience comes in. So how the body presents will tell us what we need to address first. Like in her case, hey, I'm sick all the time, I'm really fatigued. Well, we probably don't need to push detox like a monster. Let's just go slow. And then the patient history, which is what we used with her to determine that. Making sense? Yeah, we get asked that all the time. Why can't I just do this now? Like, because you'll hate me in a week. I'll be the one who gets blamed. That's why. How do we determine the dosage? So generally, we're going to muscle test the dosage and see what the body reacts to. This again is a stress test. So can I use one of you ladies? Would you be okay with coming up here? Either one?
Yeah.
Don't wrestle over it. So can you make sure we're all in frame?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What do I need to be?
I don't know. How's that looking, Michael?
You're good right there.
Okay. So, have I muscle tested you when you were? Okay.
No,
So-
I've just wrestled with Jonah.
Just holding him back. Okay. So this is a very basic muscle test. I'm going to apply a light pressure down toward the floor. You just resist slowly up toward the ceiling. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. And I want you to hold his phone on your leg. Just
On my leg.
Yeah, right over there like that. Yep. So I'm going to apply a pressure down, nice and slow. You apply pressure up and just match me in the middle. Very good. I'm going to ease it off. Good. There's a spot right here I'm going to touch. I just want to see what your on and off looks like. So your body is a giant magnet, right? It pumps electricity. There's a point I can touch right here in the middle of her head, and you resist up again. I want to see if it stays strong. Hers switches right off when my palm touches
Oh my
her.
goodness.
Did you feel that?
Yes.
Yep. So polarity. So this must be a positive on her, and this is a positive on me. Now, if I go negative, what happens to that magnet? It attracts and locks up strong, right? Remember, two north sides of a magnet repel each other? Okay. So if I use the other side of my hand, I want you to resist. She stays good and strong. So now I know what she feels like when she locks or unlocks or goes weak. So I'm going to have you hold this product in your hand. So when we determine a dose, Again, we're assessing the nervous system for stress. I'm going to take 2 tablets out. I'm going to put them in her hand so they're in her body's field. Go ahead and hold those. We're going to see, turn that over, and we're going to muscle test. So resist again. Her nervous system says 2 is fine. Let's double that dose. 2 more. Okay. And again. She's dead. Crashes.
It did.
Yep, so we're going to take 1 out. Okay, close. Try again. So her max dose, now what we could do is cut a tablet in half, right? You could get 2 in half, but 2, her nervous system is able to tolerate. Now this could be blueberries, apples, vitamins. 2 is your max. Your nervous system can benefit from 2. If you use 3, it's too much. Your body crashes. You're right back where you started. So that's how we determine her dose. Again, you're just testing the nervous system, but you can do that with pretty much anything. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see here. Okay. If you notice a theme here, you're just consistently stress testing the brain, using the arm to give you the answer. So once the tolerable amount is exceeded, the applied stress to the arm opens that circuit and it goes weak. Take 1 out, the circuit goes bloop, closes, electricity starts to flow again. The light bulb turns back on. Everybody's favorite question.
Yeah.
How are emotions trapped in the body? Kim's back there like, She's like, I know it, but I don't get it. All right, Michael, go ahead. Read this one. Ready? What is an emotion? Let's define that first.
All right. So Candace Pert discovered the chemical makeup of emotion and the opioid receptor in the brain.
If you study Candace Pert's work, she was gypped out of the Nobel Prize. She is the one who pretty much discovered the opioid receptor in the brain and didn't get credit for it. And then she also discovered neuropeptides, which are what emotions are made of. These are little protein particles your body makes. Very cool. So I'm going to read this. A feeling sparked in our body, in our mind or body, will translate as a peptide being released somewhere. Organs, skin, tissues, muscle, endocrine glands, they all have peptide receptors on them and can access and store emotional information. This is a PhD. This is what she studied. This was her life's work here. Your body makes little emotional proteins that bind to other parts of your body. So your whole body actually stores emotion. How cool is that? This means emotional memory is stored in many places in the body, not just or even primarily in the brain. How come we've never heard this before? Right? As Westerners, we're like, witchy, woo-woo emotion, right? I don't need to cry. But every other philosophy, every other approach to medicine recognizes this stuff. So, what's the summary here for emotion?
Emotions are just vibrating proteins that will influence our health state and the body's response to stress.
Yep, they are little neuropeptides that vibrate. And based on that vibration is going to be the emotion you feel. Let's see if we've got a little bit more on that. Feelings of joy, excitement, and love all vibrate at higher frequencies than feelings of anger, sadness, and shame. The higher the vibration, the better your body will feel and function. Do we have a slide in here about... Yeah, I guess so. It's good vibes.
Yeah.
So can you think of somebody, like just off the top of your head, like you probably think of somebody, we all can, when you're there around, you feel good.
Yeah.
You never dread them coming around. You're like, oh, I love when this person's here. There was a person we went to school with, and this person was not particularly attractive, but everybody was attracted to her. If you looked at her, she wasn't like pretty, she was just average. But there was something about her, everybody was just like, they gravitated to her. It was her personality and her vibration. And there's other people who are the exact opposite, right? You're like, oh my Lord, they suck the soul from you, and they're like 5 feet away. Like, I feel myself dying. And when they leave, you're like, you're tired.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you are so negative. Like, I'm a positive magnet or a positive atom, and you're a negative one. I'm like, you're draining me. It's like a battery. It's true. Anyway, what you're feeling there is that vibration.
I was hoping that's why y'all came to see us today, because, you know, You thought we have high vibration.
We're all high vibration people, or else we wouldn't be here. Now, if you're feeling tired, it's the person next to you.
Yeah.
Move down a seat or two. We worked on a gal yesterday, and she's fairly stoic, and we do a neuro-emotional technique as well. She was bawling her eyes out, and I was like, holy cow, like, what have you been through? You know, you have to be empathetic when you do this work, but you can't really connect with it because you don't want to take it home with you. Well, I picked up 2 emotions from her last night. I told Dr. Sosha, cleaner in my throat, coughing up gunk. I'm like, I picked up an emotion. I guarantee it. I really don't get sick. As long as I get worked on weekly, I don't get sick. I don't get run down. I got checked this morning. I had 2 emotions from her, anguish and grief. Guess what went away as soon as we were done with my session? Yep. But guess where grief is stored? Guess where anguish is stored? In the lungs. So you can start to piece this stuff together pretty easily. It's pretty interesting. Okay, here we go. Now we're ready for this part. Ha! Poor souls. Let's see where we want to start. Sugar. This is a good one. So, sugar.
We need somebody to volunteer as tribute, so.
Yeah, let's see. Anybody want to volunteer who's not already muscle tested all the time? I see a tall girl with brown hair back there. Oh, there she comes. There we go. Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
There
you.
you go. Here, hold this. Make sure we're both in frame, Michael. Hold that against your arm. And do you want to actually check her, see if she's good switched on and locked?
Okay.
And then we'll put a little bit of this on her tongue.
Have that on there. Good.
So she's switched on?
Yep. She's
Okay.
strong.
We're going to put a little dab of this on your tongue. Most of you guys, even those who are muscle tested, haven't seen this part of it. We skipped this just for time's sake. This is pretty cool for demo purposes. So we'll give her a little bit like on her hand. I want you to just put them on your tongue.
That was more than a little bit. You can enjoy it. Whatever. There you go. Okay.
There you go. Cool.
And that goes weak pretty quickly.
Is there a notable change there?
Yes, absolutely.
How about you, Audia? Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. Yeah. Sugar is nobody's friend. That's why we keep it in a tester for that purpose. So that's when you taste a substance that your body views as toxic, aka overwhelming to the nervous system. Right? So that was sugar. Is there another volunteer we're willing to do something with? But you won't have to taste anything. Promise. Come on. I know you want to. I see it. I see it.
Okay, you got experience.
Which one are you doing now?
We'll just do the sniff test. How about that? Oh, yes. We have a...
Go ahead and put that in that hand for me.
All right. So make sure she's good, strong, and locked. Is locked a good thing? All right. Yeah.
Good.
And she is. So the other way you can do this is the sniff test. This is a bottle of over-the-counter headache medication. It will remain nameless. What I would like you to do is muscle test her. He's going to give you a consistent, steady pressure. And you're going to breathe in slow. What will happen is, versus a big whiff, the muscle will stay strong, usually, and then slowly over time unlock once it gets overwhelmed. Try that. Some people just unlock immediately. Depends on your body.
So I'm just going to keep pressure just like this. I'm going to bring this in.
And speak loud so everybody can hear, microphone can hear.
Okay. So we got consistent pressure. We're going to bring this. Go ahead and slowly take a couple sniffs of this. There it goes. You feel that?
Yeah. I do.
So eventually,
Now take just a big whiff.
yeah, there you go. That crashed your system there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I
Yep.
felt that.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. So there's a taste response, right? That's the gustatory reflex. The olfactory reflex is smell. All these things go straight into the brain. So the things like airborne chemicals, airborne metals, when you breathe those in, they absolutely affect you. Things they spray in the air affects you. The perfume in Kohl's when you go for an Amazon return, or those candles, you know, you walk past there in Frankfurt. Oh my gosh. Kill you. Okay, let's switch sides, see what else we have in here. Oh, this is a good one. Yes, so the cell phones, the laptops. Anybody wearing a smartwatch? Oh, Christy. And as of our conversation yesterday, we can you come on up? We only have, wait, oh, do you have one too?
I have a Fitbit.
Fitbit. It does the same thing, usually. Hello, darling.
Welcome to the stage.
Okay. Oh, what? Oh, man.
Got you on that.
Yeah, you did. Come back up. Come back up. Jeez, oh man, she did get me. Oh, you, dang. All right. So these smartwatches, we call them
Death watches?
death watches. What really turned me on to this whole thing was I had a little boy come in. He was 12 or 13. He had Hashimoto's. How many 13-year-old boys come in with Hashimoto's? That's autoimmune thyroid condition. The only thing that showed up for him was EMF, and it was this watch. And I was like, well, instead of doing supplements and all that right now, why don't we just take this watch off, come back in a few months with new labs? This kid had been dealing with Hashimoto's for the better part of a year or two. It's a year and a half, something like that. Hashimoto's was gone once we took that watch off. I was like, maybe there's something to this. So I started testing them. Now, I'm going to give you a demonstration of Christy. Can I borrow your arm? So Christy, she's been muscle tested, so we don't have to calibrate her. Bring this down a little bit. Down, down. There you go. So resist me slowly toward the ceiling. Good. She's good and strong. Now I'm going to put more pressure on her than normal, right? I want to see just how strong her nervous system is, how much stress it can withstand. Pretty good, right? Yeah, I'm pushing her over. Now, let's take the watch off for a sec, and I want to have you untape your little special device on there. If you think the watches are bad, the cell phones are even worse. The phone could be 4 feet away from you and still just blow you out. So we have a little device that she took off that mitigates the radiation. Here we go. Thank you. So now what we're going to do is assess the nervous system again using the deltoid muscle and the arm with the watch on without our device on it. So give me a nice little bit of pressure. There we go. Nothing. Agreed? Mm-hmm. So the devices around us put off radiation as well, just like your body. The difference is the radiation your body puts off is more similar to that of like the Earth, that Schumann resonance of the Earth. That's a healthy vibration. Phones, not so much. You can have a seat. Thank you for doing that with us.
Do you want to tell them what this is?
Sure. So does anybody have a cell phone with them? Right. Anybody I have not shown this to before? Come on up. Yeah, bring your phone. Do you know which phone you have?
I have an iPhone
12? Okay, maybe a 12 Pro?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we both in frame? Should I have her stand here? Or?
You're in frame.
Okay. So I'm going to have you hold that again against your leg. Perfect. And we'll show you guys why we're doing that with the phone. So if I give her a little pressure downward, she gives me a little pressure upward. We meet in the middle. Good and strong. Agreed? Mm-hmm. Okay. This is not on airplane mode, right? I'm going to keep this 4 or 5 feet away from her and bring it to her slowly. I just want to see when her body responds to it. And it will just eventually get weak. And she's doing better than most people.
I don't I'm not a phone person.
Good.
You can ask my friend.
Part of the issue is you have his phone on you already, though. Tell you what. So these are our cheaters. The rings, the devices that we have on these phones will keep you switched on in the presence of Wi-Fi and cell phone radiation, etc. So what we need to do with her is test her without that being on the body.
You don't need that. You have yours.
Oh, thank you. We actually have one line here somewhere. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go right up your spine here a few times. We're going to create some polarity. What does the spine conduct? What did we say? It begins with an E? Yeah. All right. So now a little bit, keep that away from you. Good and strong, agreed? Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we're going to put this, say, here, and then I want you to resist. Feel the difference?
Yeah, I did.
She's not too bad right here, but somewhere in between, like, what, 2 and 3 feet, she starts to crash. Now the difference is, depending on the phone, these go in different places in the back of the phone. I don't really know on an iPhone 12 Pro off the top of my head. I have an iPhone 12 and mine goes down here somewhere, so that's where we're going to start.
Okay.
All right, so I'm just going to keep this here, and I'm going to muscle test. It's still weak. I'm going to move it a little bit. It's still weak. I'll move it up a little bit more. Ooh, did you feel that? Mm-hmm. Boom. So in her case, that's where that ring would go, and it negates the radiation coming out of that phone. And what we used to think was that it made it a neutral, right? But instead of being neutral, it actually makes it a beneficial radiation, meaning when the ring's on there, it keeps you switched on. It keeps your nervous system locked and strong. So it amplifies your body's like electromagnetic field, which is what you want. When you go outside, walk barefoot, and you ground and you absorb those electrons, your electromagnetic field is stronger, more broad. When the rings are on there, that's what happens. So previously, when you had your phone in your back pocket, you were increasing your chances of cancer. More likely than not, when this is on there, you're not doing that. In fact, you're probably helping your body improve its health. So we have these little devices available. If you keep a phone or a smartwatch, you probably need to have one of these because these things, for instance, the iPhone 12 specifically, France said, we're not importing this, you're not selling this here. It put off so much radiation. These put off above the legal limit of radiation. Samsung and Apple across the board. How they're allowed to sell them, I don't know. Probably because everybody's addicted to them. But I strongly suggest if you guys don't have one of these, you need to put one on your phone. And absolutely if you have a smartwatch. Just give the smartwatch to somebody you don't like. Save the $60. These are $60, they last forever, and they transfer phone to phone. We even have them on all of our laptops, iPads, big screen TV.
How do we know where to put it?
I will show you. And most of the phones we have pictures of. So like Stephanie's got family, lives in Montana, and we just mailed her the rings, and I sent her a picture like, hey, you've got an iPhone 13, it goes here. You've got an iPhone 15, it goes here. And it's usually pretty darn close. That's how we would know.